9 presents Young Frankenstein, alive on Broadway.
Welcome. We're taking you on stage and backstage at Mel Brooks' hilarious new musical comedy, Young Frankenstein. You'll see Megan Mullally's R-rated number, the all-new Puttin' on the Ritz, and a look back at the movie classic that started it all. It's an abnormal hour of stars, insider secrets, and surprises. We'll put you in the front row at Broadway's new hit show.
I said, Gene, this is too crazy.
He jokes about it now. He tells everyone I was nuts.
5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 3, hit!
Listen to your heart. Run inside.
You take the blonde, I'll take the one in the toy bin.
I get to belt out the word twice.
But I am a rather brilliant surgeon. Perhaps I can help you with that hump. What hump? Walk this way. What else could possibly go wrong?
Ask me about my sex life.
He was my boyfriend.
Nothing.
Deep love. At last I found deep love.
She's in touch with her sexuality.
I dated the original Dr. Frankenstein.
It's Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein. Frankenstein.
Throw the third switch!
That's it. That's our show.
And we've got more for you.
A monster showstopper that outdoes the movie. Meet Mel Brooks, the funniest man on Broadway, sexual chemistry in the doctor's lab, red carpet confessions, Gene Wilder's melodrama, and Megan's deep love.
You know her as the Lookin' for Love, Karen Walker from Will and Grace. And Young Frankenstein, Megan Mullally, is hot for the monster. But when it comes to her fiance, Dr. Frankenstein, it's a case of please don't touch me.
You can spank me till I'm red if it's only in your head. But please don't touch me.
I get to belt out the word twice, center stage on Broadway. Top that.
Fans of the Will and Grace star may be surprised that Megan can belt out a show tune, in this case, an R-rated show tune.
Been searching for deep love for all of my life.
When I first heard that song, I was like, are you kidding me? I thought, oh God, I love this. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. And just the silly double entendre. It's very similar to Will and Grace in a lot of ways, just because there's a lot of dirty stuff and it's kind of dumb. And so I get to stand center stage and belt out a great big old high note and, you know, raise my fist in the air. It's Les Mis meets the Robin Bird Show. My inner and outer naughtiness is brought out.
Now that's a curtain call, but not Megan's first on Broadway.
My first Broadway show was Grease, the revival of Grease back in 1994 with Rosie O'Donnell. I played Marty in that. She's the character that sings the song Freddie, My Love, which is not in the movie, which most people know.
Do you remember that song to this day?
Yeah. Yeah. Freddie, my love, I miss you more than...
It's me. It's me.
When I called her to come and audition, she came in the next day, and when she sang, it was glorious. You know, she sang much better than I ever imagined, and I think that's what's great for an audience who knows her as a television star. They come in and they discover her as this musical comedy star because they cannot believe she has these vocal chops, and every night she stops the show.
Megan may not have imagined she would be a Broadway star, but 20 years ago, a psychic predicted her TV success.
I remember him telling me that I was going to play a secretary on a television sitcom, and then I would win 2 Emmys, and they would be like bookends. And I said, well, that's ridiculous, because I'm never even going to audition for a television sitcom, because that's beneath my dignity.
Megan won those 2 Emmys plus 3 SAG Awards. She's also the lead singer in the Supreme Music program, but she's at her sexiest on stage.
Love. And I'm not talking about puppy love either.
For me, my favorite scene would be the cave scene. where before and after being ravished by the monster, you know, there's nothing like playing an extended scene with a grunting monster.
Again? Oh, you're incorrigible, aren't you, you zipperneck?
Mel Brooks is the driving force behind the $16 million musical comedy. For 6 decades, Mel has made America laugh.
And now, for my next impression, Jesse Owens.
He has spoofed westerns, Hitchcock thrillers, Bible epics, Men in Tights, and Mel famously poked fun at Hitler.
Springtime for Hitler and Germany.
I'm the only one who used Hitler properly. I think that the Allies did a very good job, you know, in destroying the Third Reich. But I was the first one to have fun with Hitler, you know, to get even with him, you know.
Hey, Hitler! Hi, Hitler! All right, I've got it.
He said, I'm doing the same thing that Charlie Chaplin did. You want to get back at a dictator, a swine, a rotten pig? Make fun of him.
Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party.
The Producers was Mel's first hit movie. He arrived in Hollywood by way of the Borscht Belt as a stand-up comedian.
Then I'd say, good evening, ladies and Jews. I want to tell you about it, you know. And then I'd go, and I'd work, and I'd say, I met a girl last night. This girl was so thin. I met the skinniest girl. This was a slender person. I took her to a restaurant. The maitre d' said, check your umbrella. That's how skinny, you know. And if I didn't get a laugh from that one, I'd have to jump into another, you know. But it was live.
And wanting that live audience again, Mel left Hollywood for Broadway.
You make a movie, it's sometimes 18 months before you hear your first laugh. I'm very happy with Broadway because it is alive and it's thrilling.
With Young Frankenstein and before it The Producers, Mel brought back old-school musical comedy.
It was a long time before Broadway once again had a musical comedy. Phantom of the Opera is okay, you know. I'd rather see the other side of his face, frankly.
At age 81, Mel is the toast of Broadway, and there is a rumor Blazing Saddles is his next musical.
True, or that's
No, it's not true.
Not true.
It's not true.
No,
I just looking for a laugh. Looking for a laugh. I say it's not true 3 years from now if I run out of ideas. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Here's Blazing Saddles.
Still to come on Young Frankenstein, alive on Broadway.
Meet the monster behind this monster hit, black teeth and all.
Anything for my art form.
He's a super Jew of old time. He's the funniest person ever.
Billy Crystal pays tribute to Mel.
Why don't you go and fashion suits?
How did they putting on the Ritz on Broadway?
Mel Brooks' real name is Melvin Kaminsky, and he served as an Army corporal in World War II.
You're watching Young Frankenstein, alive on Broadway.
42nd Street is the Monster Block. You can see the classic original at Madame Tussauds, New York, and right across the street, there's a new monster in town. Getting raves, my friend.
Oh, well, you know, it has nothing to do with makeup or anything.
What is this goose?
Licorice! Would you like some?
No, but I thought it was avocado.
You know what my daughter calls me?
Right.
She calls me the gingerbread man.
Oh.
She's come in here and she goes, oh, the gingerbread man. So I'm like, ah.
When you're putting on the Ritz, and you have the big clumpy shoes on, what are those shoes made of?
They are from the village. You see them? And they're about 4-inch platforms. They zip up.
Ooh,
and
sexy.
then
And how high?
they're
4?
yeah, just about 4. So I'm about 6'7", 6'8" in these. I'm an average NBA forward. Well, maybe. Yes.
What color are we putting on here?
Black.
This is death black.
It's the latest from Revlon.
And then we do teeth to match.
I don't think this should be part of your regular denim.
Oh!
We dry the teeth off a little better. Here's the second color that really pulls it together, which is a tobacco stain.
Nice, huh?
It gives it a nice rotted look.
Anything for my art for. You know, I grew up with the movie and it's so embedded in my head. And you can't recreate, you know, you don't want to recreate that because you can't. It's Peter Boyle and it's Gene Wilder and it's all those legends and it's a whole new show, really. It's that familiar scenes, but it's new. So it's the best of both worlds, I think. And the audience, it's funny because you can hear them when they see something familiar from the film. They'll go, ah.
We're going to go back to the beginning and start with you, well, as you, before you become him.
Oh!
The monster process takes about an hour.
It's not that easy being green. Seems you blend in with so many ordinary things, and people tend to pass you over because you're not sparkles in the water or stars in the sky. But green's the color of spring. Green can be cool and friendly like, and green can be big like the ocean, or important like a mountain, or tall like a tree. When green is all there is to be, it could make you wonder why wonder, I'm green. It's beautiful, and I think it's what I want to be.
Voila!
And now I want you to meet more of the cast members. Walk this way.
Perhaps I can help you with that hump. What hump?
In the first hump that we had, it wasn't big enough, so we upped the hump.
This is the extra added humpage.
And why did you want the extra padding?
Well, I wasn't sure if it was reading enough from the audience. We have, 10,000 people fit in this theater.
I don't want to give a spoiler away, but there might be more than one hump, and there actually might be more than two humps in this show.
Together again for the first time. Having to
Chris Fitzgerald is young Frankenstein's resident comedian. His dressing room has the most fun stuff.
What hump? Hello. I'm Marty Feldman. No, it's Chris I don't know what's happening.
Mel discovered Chris in an off-Broadway show, Gutenberg the Musical. I didn't make that up. He ad-libbed his Igor audition.
Put my sweatshirt up over my head as for my little hood and just went crazy. And in the second audition, they did say, walk this way.
Walk this way, Patch.
Still to come on Young Frankenstein, alive on Broadway.
Walk this way.
In a rare interview, Gene Wilder tells the real story behind Young Frankenstein, and we celebrate that illustrious cast. Plus, confessions from the red carpet.
And this guy sat down and grabbed my hand and said, "I'm afraid to fly, honey. Talk to me." And it was Mel Brooks.
Young Frankenstein was the bassist for the Aerosmith's classic song, Walk This Way! The band members borrowed the phrase after seeing the film together.
Walk this way.
You're watching Young Frankenstein, alive on Broadway.
On his stage 5 on the Fox lot, Young Frankenstein was shot back in the 1970s. The special edition DVD captures what it was like to be here back then, with a making-of documentary, a blooper reel, and a lot of other features. Young Frankenstein was Gene Wilder's idea, and here's Gene to tell us how it all began.
That's Frankenstein. I took that pen and the yellow legal pad and I wrote at the top, Young Frankenstein. But I thought Young Frankenstein is a funny title.
Where did the idea come from?
When I was a kid, I was scared to death of the Frankenstein movies. When I saw those movies and I remembered them, I also remembered that I wanted to change the endings. I wanted them to end happily.
Penny for your thoughts.
Before Mel began working on the Broadway version, he called his longtime collaborator and friend.
He wanted my permission, he wanted my approval. I tried to talk him out of it at first. At that time, with his wife,
Anne Bancroft,
gone, and Mel was going through such hell for a year. I knew it was important for him to be busy, just be busy. And when he called that 1 week later, he started right in, almost the same sentence that he left off on. And I said, stop talking, I want you to do it.
Walk this way.
Where did that line come from?
He said, it's an old vaudeville joke. A man has a terrible case of hemorrhoids. He goes to a drugstore. He says, do you have some talcum powder? And the druggist says, yes, sir, walk this way. He said, if I could walk that way, I wouldn't need the talcum powder. Walk this way.
Oh. Gene now lives in Connecticut with his wife Karen, and he has a new career as a best-selling author. His books include Kiss Me Like a Stranger, My French Whore, and his new novel, The Woman Who Wouldn't. But I had a question about his first career.
If you ask me my favorite film of the ones I've done, it's Young Frankenstein. I don't think it's just because I wrote, but because I enjoyed every minute of it, and I think it was the best comedy cast I had seen in maybe 20 years. I loved working with those people.
And now, let us all go to my house for a little sponge cake and a little wine.
And tonight, we salute that cast of gifted actors. Terry Garr lives in L.A. and retired from acting after being diagnosed with MS. She spends her time raising awareness and money for multiple sclerosis. Cloris Leachman lives and works in L.A. At 81, she has won more Emmys than any other actress. Marty Feldman is buried here at Forest Lawn. Mel Brooks came to this famous cemetery early last year when he was working on Young Frankenstein to ask for Marty's blessing.
I got to tell you a secret. I went up to where Marty Feldman is laid to rest in California. And I went up there, and I you know, he's right near, actually Marty is not too far from Buster Keaton, his idol, Marty's idol. And Stan Laurel was not too far.
So he's in good company.
He's very good. Sure, good. And I told Marty all about Chris Fitzgerald. I said, you won't be ashamed. You won't be, you know, and I told him all about the show, and I said, you know, if you're floating around anywhere, you'll be pleased. If you know, I told him how good Chris Fitzgerald is, how really, how well he salutes the role of Igor.
He's so fearless. Who knows what part of his crazy brain came up with so much of that stuff.
Madeline Kahn was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 1999 and died later that year.
To me, you know, she seemed like one of those people that you would really want to sit down and have dinner with. You know, like a really great gal.
Peter Boyle died of cancer and heart disease in 2006, shortly after Everybody Loves Raymond ended its 10-year run. The show earned Boyle 7 Emmy nominations.
I am the monster!
Yeah, I see that you are the monster.
Kenneth Mars is the voice of Ariel's father, Triton, in The Little Mermaid. Gene Hackman has unofficially retired from acting, having won 2 Oscars during his illustrious career.
Still to come on Young Frankenstein, alive on Broadway.
I had a big fight with Gene Wilder.
A battle of wills over the movie's most famous scene. The show's sexiest musical number.
You're this close to the end of your career.
From American Gangster to Desperate Housewives and Broadway, Roger Bart has something on his brain.
'Cause I love this is the king of that sort of thing. There is nothing like a